Good evening. For those of you in the audience who've not attended one of these hearings recently, please allow me to review our normal procedures. Staff will introduce each item for consideration. If you'd like to speak on the matter, please fill out a speaker form which is located out in the lobby and indicate the number whether you're for or against the item. After you've filled out that paperwork, please hand it to the clerk and she'll pass it on to us. As each matter rolls along, the applicant and its supporters will be heard first. Those in opposition to the request will be heard next. And if the situation calls for it, the applicant will be given a chance for rebuttal. Comments should be restricted to pertinent information regarding the agenda item under discussion. Personal disputes are irrelevant. If you're an individual, you'll have 3 minutes for your comments. If you represent a group, you will have 6 minutes. Speakers should move closer to the podium when their item is being presented by staff. Speakers should also identify themselves clearly for the record by stating their name and address. Each speaker should be given respectful and courteous attention. The board may ask questions of speakers and of staff, and information such as photos, site plans, and things like that presented at the public hearing will be kept as part of the public record. I'll then ask for a motion from the board. Once a motion has been made and seconded, discussion will be closed to the floor. Following board discussion, a vote will be taken. During voting, board members who do not cast objecting votes are considered to have voted in favor of the motion. Any person aggrieved by any decision of this board may, within 15 days, file an appeal to the Board of County Commissioners, and staff can help you with that process. Having said that, number one, please.
Good evening. For the record, Angie Gates. Item number 1 is a request for a side street west setback variance from 2 feet to 0 feet for a privacy fence in the R1A single-family dwelling district in the Woodcrest Units subdivision located at 7413 Barnacle Court. The subject property is a corner lot, is considered to have 2 front yards for setback purposes. The front of the house faces Barnacle Court, and the north Woodcrest side is where the variance is being sought. The existing privacy fence was previously approved for a side street setback variance from 25 feet to 2 feet on January 22nd, 2024. On April 11th, 2024, the Seminole County Building Department inspected the fence, and it was determined that the fence is located at 0 feet and not 2 feet, requiring the applicant to apply for another variance. Traffic engineering has no objection to the placement of the fence as it relates to site visibility, and this concludes my presentation.
Gentlemen, any questions for staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure, because I downloaded my agenda last week when it first came out. But the first one I had was not that one, so.
That's because this item was continued, and it was added later.
Okay, all right.
This
I don't
was
have it.
continued from last month because
don't
she
have
was
it?
out of town.
Question I have, does this now make this matter ripe for code enforcement, or do we know if that process
No,
has begun?
They're not illegal right
Why
now.
not?
Because they got a building permit, and they have 180 days to complete it. It's still a building permit.
Still open,
yes.
because we were planning here.
Right,
Yeah.
and the building department is aware that she needs to apply for another building, or another variance. So
Gotcha.
they'll work with her.
Gotcha. Any other questions for staff?
Which property are we on? Because the first one I see is Mary Drive.
The staff had emailed to us an amended agenda, and maybe not everybody
Maybe.
uploaded that one, but it's as described by Angie.
I don't recognize any of this.
All right, sir, are you here for the applicant?
Yes, I'm Alexis Rodriguez. I reside at the above address, 7413 Barnacle Court. The applicant is Amanda Ban. She's in the crowd? I don't know if that's a crowd.
I remember you from last month. You're the fiance, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I still got my note, too.
Okay.
And he does have owner authorization now. So he's
Good. All right, how did we get here?
So when we came the first time, we requested 2 feet off of our property line setback so that we could run our lawnmower down it, and it'd just be one swipe. Where we didn't do right is we misread the form, and we thought our property line was parallel with the sidewalk, when it starts parallel with the sidewalk at one point, but it ends like not parallel with the sidewalk. So we misread it, and when I measured 2 feet from the sidewalk, the entire length of the north-facing setback of the property.
I guess my question would be, you were approved for 2 feet. I understand what you're saying about issues of being parallel. Where were you measuring the 2 feet, or did you measure the 2 feet?
I measured 2 feet from the edge of the sidewalk, where at one point it is 2 feet in the beginning of the yard from the edge of the sidewalk, but towards the back it's not, because it goes like this. So I think we're like 6 inches from the property line all the way at the end.
Who installed the fence?
I did.
There it is.
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Gentlemen, any other questions?
That's why she's making
You don't have to put that in the notes.
It's already recorded.
You fix this.
Gentlemen, you have any other questions for this person? Seeing none? Anything else to share, sir?
The only thing I have to share is we've had a couple neighbors come by from the end of cul-de-sac, and they were like, "You need to stop making your property look so nice because we can't keep up with you." But all we've really done is trim some trees and put up a fence.
Speaking of those neighbors, looking at our map, I don't see yay or nay from any neighbors. Do you have anything from your neighbors you can share?
So not currently when we applied for our first variance, we had like 14 signatures for yay. I don't have that paperwork with me today.
They did originally, but because they were old signatures and they were for the previous variance, we couldn't bring it to this hearing. I told her she'd have to get all new signatures.
Are you a lawyer?
I am not.
I was kind of joking there.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the audience to speak in support of this application? Seeing none, anyone in the audience to speak in opposition to this? Seeing none, gentlemen, your pleasure.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Consider yourself lucky. What's next?
Learn to measure.
Item number 2 is a request for a rear yard setback variance from 10 feet to 6 feet for a screen room addition in the PD Plan Development District in the Crystal Creek Unit 1 subdivision located at 557 Tall Oaks Terrace. The screen room addition is approximately 156 square feet and encroaches 4 feet into the required rear yard setback. A building code violation, case number 24-78, was issued on March 6, 2024 for the installation of a screen room without the required building permit. On December 26, 2023, Finish Line Screen applied for a building permit, BP 23-19491. The permit was denied by planning on January 4th, 2024 for not meeting the minimum rear yard setback of 10 feet. On February 21st, 2024, the building department received a letter from Finish Line Screens that stated the property owners wanted to cancel the permit. Once there was written request to void the permit, a building inspector is required to inspect the property to see if the work was performed. On February 29th, 2024, the inspection was performed, resulting in the issuance of a building code violation. There have not been any prior variances for the subject property, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for staff? All right. Evening, sir. If you
Good
could
evening.
please tell us your name and address, and
Ted Archer, 557 Tall Oaks Terrace, Longwood, Florida. I'm the homeowner.
how did we get here, sir?
I hired Finish Line Screens to do this job for me on an existing slab that was built when the house was first built in 1992. And according to them, everything was done right. He said he had a building permit and everything. He never advised me that there was an issue with the setback, as this was a screen room that was installed on an existing slab from when the house was built. I didn't know anything about it until March, when I got a letter from the county saying that we were in violation. So when I called them up and asked them what was going on, they told me about it. I've had numerous attempts to contact Finish Line Screens. They're ghosting me. They won't return my calls. They won't return my emails. So as you see, the screen room is already installed. I'm trying to get a variance for that 4 feet so that we can keep the screen room and make use of that area in our backyard.
Did you pay them?
Yes, I did.
They were happy, they didn't ghost you on that.
Nope. They will be hearing from my lawyer when this is all done and I find out what my total bill is.
Good stuff. Gentlemen, any questions?
Yes. Question, Mr. Archer,
Yes.
what date did the contractor work on the porch?
On January 16th is when it was installed.
And how many days did they take to do the work?
I signed the original contract on October 31st. I was then informed in November that I would need a new current survey, so I had
No, I mean the actual building that
Oh,
they started on
one
the
day.
16th.
1 day.
One day when
Yep.
they're done. And you were not aware that the permit they told you they applied for, you were not aware that they, in fact, did not have that permit?
No, I was not aware. Yeah, had they advised me that we needed a variance like that, I'd have gone through the process then instead of trying to do it afterwards.
Okay. And the letter that they wrote to the planning department to withdraw the permit application, are you?
I'm not aware of it, never, this is the
No
first
knowledge of
I've
that.
heard of that part of it. I was only aware that they had canceled or not completed the permit process.
Any other, I'm sorry, Tom, are you finished?
No, I'm done, thank you.
Any other questions?
So the work is done?
Yes, it is.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Anyone in the audience to speak in support of the application? Seeing none, anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, gentlemen, your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Second?
A motion to approve in a second. Any objection? Any comment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, you go get them.
Good luck in court.
Item number 3 is a request for 1, a height variance from 4 feet to 8 feet, and 2, a setback variance from 30 feet to 8 feet to the normal high water line for a fence that exceeds 4 feet in height located on a natural water body in the R1 Single Family Dwelling District in the McNeil's Orange Villa subdivision located at 10032 Bear Lake Road. The proposed privacy fence will be 93 linear feet and will exceed 4 feet over the maximum fence height requirement of 4 feet for a fence located on a natural water body. There were 5 prior variance approvals for the subject property. On October 30th, 2006, a side yard north setback variance from 7.5 feet to 5.5 feet, and a side yard south setback variance from 7.5 feet to 4.5 feet for a proposed single-family dwelling. On January 23rd, 2023, a side yard north setback variance from 10 feet to 1 foot for a boat dock. On August 28th, 2023, a side yard north setback variance from 7.5 feet to 1 foot for 2 sheds. A letter of opposition was received today from the property owners directly to the south of the subject property. And this concludes my presentation. Did you guys get your email today? Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. Any questions for staff? All right, seeing none, is the applicant here?
I'm here.
Please come on down, ma'am. If you could just real quick give us your name and address for the record.
Absolutely. Amy Wheeler, 10032 Bear Lake Road.
Ma'am, is there anything you'd like to add to what staff had shared?
No.
Do you have on you a photo kind of showing how the other house is 4 feet up higher than
I
yours?
do.
Okay. I was hoping.
Somewhere. Here.
Take your time.
It just shows how high their home is. But you want to see it next to mine?
If you have it, or like the view from your property. I guess what you're saying is that how tall their foundation is?
Yes,
I got you.
yes.
Gotcha. Gentlemen, any questions?
Is your property ground level?
Yeah,
They're elevated, but yours is ground level?
Yes.
It's hard her cell phone. You'll have
It's
to
her
move it
phone,
away from her.
yeah.
That's okay.
Well, I think there were,
Judge, you get your question answered?
well, yes, thank you. But I think there were two concerns. One, that the maximum limit is 8 feet, is that correct? Anyway, maximum height is 8 feet,
Yes.
and this is already 6.5. And the second objection,
It's not existing.
pardon me,
The wall isn't existing.
the wall's not existing yet.
I don't have a fence currently, no.
I thought I read that there was already a wall 6.5 feet.
There isn't already a wall. The neighbor has is it a fence?
No,
that
it's a
they have?
concrete block wall.
They have a concrete block wall that was
Which is falling
permitted
apart.
around the time their house was built.
How tall is the neighbors?
6.5 feet.
Is it an adjoining neighbor, or is it the neighbor that's objecting?
It's the neighbor who is objecting, and he's adjacent.
They already have a wall 6.5 feet, and they're objecting that your 8 feet then would block their view.
Because it goes closer to the water.
Right, right. Whatever the reason, they're just saying.
Well, that's what the setback is for the 8-foot wall to go closer to the normal high water line.
But there is
And
an ability to have an 8-foot wall. Is it allowed?
with a variance.
Pardon me?
With a variance.
With the,
It's the height and the setback
Okay.
for the wall.
Not by right.
Not, in other words, it's not okay. With you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Sir?
The, our site plan, the one that's up there right now, what's the reason that you stopped 8 feet from the normal, how'd you come up with that number?
From the 8 feet from,
Where the end of the fence terminates before it hits, goes to the water?
I have rocks there. So the fence would go up to the rocks.
I'm just asking, I mean, right now
I
it
have
needs to be
2
30
dogs.
feet to meet our code, and
Yeah, I have 2 dogs, just taking the fence to the rocks.
thank you.
Have you spoken with, and I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, but with other neighbors, et cetera, the opposition, have you tried to find a?
With the adjacent neighbor? No, sir.
Okay,
I've been advised by the local authorities not to engage with them.
okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
I get one more.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
What is the height restriction of the fence? Or is that unknown?
Where's the height of the fence?
Well, yeah, she wants to put a fence, 8 feet, but what is the height that's allowed?
4 feet.
So she wants to,
She's
put a
going to
fence
exceed
double
it
the
by
size of what's
4.
allowed.
Correct.
okay, and the neighbor's complaining that, well, where does 6.5 feet come in then? Is that where it's,
I think that's the neighbors.
the neighbor across the street,
The neighbor has a 6.5.
across the street neighbor,
It's,
who's
no,
complaining?
No.
So you got this lot here, it's this neighbor that's complaining. They've got, it's these folks just right below them
Well,
here.
the picture she showed us then,
And then how she showed you is, I guess, that house there. Right there.
what's it blocking? So it's blocking,
I guess they're
The water.
thinking, I guess they want to look that.
They think it's
Okay,
going
I
to
got you.
block the water.
Mr. Chair.
Sir?
Just as a follow-up to Judge's question, if, to staff, if the, I hypothesize, I'm just throwing this out here, if the 8-foot fence ended at 30 foot from the normal high water line, and then a 4-foot fence continued, where the fence height changed at that point, is there any concerns that would still be, we still need to require the 8-foot variance regardless?
Right, because it's a wall, not a fence, that is going to be 8 foot in height.
No, I'm putting a fence.
I'm sorry, I'm reading
I
the
thought
survey
you were
and
doing the block wall.
it says 8 foot from fence to the normal high water line, so I'm confused.
I'm not
Because
putting a
the
block wall.
application stated,
I'm putting a gray PVC fence on that side.
But not like a chain link or
My
anything that's
apologies,
translucent.
my
Yeah.
apologies, it is a fence.
Okay, I mean, even
I'm
our
really
staff report
sorry,
says
Mrs.
fence, so
Wheeler.
I'm, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is a fence, my apologies, it's 8
And
feet.
not having looked at the.
I'm getting it confused with the neighbor's block wall
worries.
that they have.
Not having looked at the.
But it's not
property.
like a chain link fence or anything translucent or?
No, no,
But
it's a.
I guess going back to my, again, if the 8-foot height still has to have a variance on the fence,
Yes,
because we have a 6.5-foot standard max.
yes.
But
And
if
it,
the 8-foot,
from the normal high water line, there's a certain setback from the normal high water
30
line.
foot, that's where the 8, if it has to be 4 foot, or it has to be 30 feet beyond the normal high water line.
Correct.
So I guess what I'm asking is, and I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth, but
Right, right.
if the 8-foot fence ended at 30 foot from the from the normal high water line, and then a 4-foot fence continued, does
She
that
would-
eliminate
She
any
would still need a variance because
need
it
a variance for the
exceeds,
8-foot
yes.
fence.
She could do 6.5 feet if it met the setback, but when it exceeds the 6.5 feet, if it met the setback, then she would still need one for the 8 feet.
Correct.
Right, just the one for, sorry, Nasa Worker, Deputy County Attorney for the record. The requirement is, the code requirement is that any fence adjacent to a natural water body is limited to a maximum of 4 feet. Any fence or wall greater than 4 feet must be located a minimum distance of 30 feet away from the mean high water line. So yeah, in your scenario, essentially, one of the variances wouldn't be necessary, but one would because you're still
Correct.
exceeding
And
your
that's
max
what I was
height.
trying to get to.
That's right.
We could eliminate one of the variances for the setback to the normal high water line.
You're
if the
correct.
fence height was reduced.
That's right. And you also have the option too of, you don't have to approve both variances. They could stand on their own. You could approve one and not the other. I mean, it's at the pleasure of the board, but under your scenario, yes, that would eliminate one of the variance requests.
Anything else?
No, sir, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So what is the purpose of the 8-foot versus 4-foot going to the 8-foot mark of the water line?
It's for privacy and security. The adjacent neighbor committed battery and assault against a guest I had to my home last November, and I need privacy and security from these neighbors. There's a police report to substantiate what I'm saying.
Mr. Evans, anything else?
No, that was where I was going.
Question for County Attorney's Office, just as long as you're here. Am I remembering correctly from first-year law, thinking about the objection letter, that there's no right to a view or anything like that?
Well, I mean, as far as a riparian right to view the water,
Or any kind of right to view that would be, there's no diminution of a property right by putting up the fence. There's no right
of
to
the
it.
adjacent property owner?
Correct.
I don't know that I think what it comes down to, for your purposes, is whether or not the existence of this fence in some way, or the height of this fence, or what the request is, in some way it violates one of the criteria for a variance, right? Because in your scenario, if you're looking for a riparian right to view the water, that's a civil action and not really something that, from a riparian right standpoint, would be considered here. But as far as the criteria goes, one of your criteria is the effect on the health, safety, and welfare of the adjacent properties. You all know what your variance criteria is, so whether or not it's going to have an effect on the
Yeah.
view or on adjacent properties, that's something that can be considered under your variance criteria.
I guess there's two things. One is we're thinking competent substantial evidence, but also if we're talking civil causes of action, there is no existence in a civil cause of action for blocking someone's view. That's not a valid cause of action, is it?
Well, I don't know that I would say that categorically.
Okay.
Like if you had a condo or something built in front of you and it blocked all light and
Isn't that
view and
Fontainebleau or
everything
something
like
like
that,
that?
but that's
Yeah.
that's not really what's happening in this case,
Right.
so.
There's no legal right to a view, though.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Gentlemen, any other questions? Yes, sir.
It was sort of brushed over, and what we do today happens within a few minutes. What the result will last for a long time. And you mentioned that there was an assault or something on your property. I don't quite understand what you're saying. The basic question is, an assault means that the person who has themselves challenged is now in fear from someone who has the ability to create that fear and do them harm. Now, was this action by your neighbor,
Yeah.
was this something against you when you say it was an
It
assault
was-
on your, let me finish the question. Was, when you say it was an assault on the property, can you give us a little more detail? Follow it up by, is there currently in place an order of protection or, well, let's just say, call it an order of
Okay.
protection?
So the assault and battery took place, I was on my property. The assault and battery took place against a guest that I had at my home. He took a water hose, sprayed her in the face, and she fell into a fire pit. That he took his hose and put my fire, which is in a contained fire pit, he put that out. And then he proceeded with the hose to hit her full force in the face to the point where she lost her balance and fell into the fire pit. Because again, their home is higher, so she was standing up, and he hit her with the water.
Is this something out of the blue, or did they have a relationship go south?
This
No,
is,
they had no relationship,
Okay.
no.
Or what was the purpose?
What was the purpose?
Hold on.
You
If
would
I might,
have to
I don't-
ask him.
I just want.
You would have to ask him.
I think this is not something that falls into competent substantial.
yeah,
evidence
this is in the weeds for sure. This
Yeah,
is not, let's stick with,
Not to diminish anyone's suffering.
Yeah.
But I
Well, I
think.
want the fence for privacy and security, because
Okay.
that has been breached, in my opinion,
I got you. Let's,
on multiple occasions.
yes, ma'am, thank you. I think the time has passed. We'll close the floor to
Okay,
that.
thank you.
And anyone here
Yes, sir.
to speak in support of the application? Anyone here to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Come on down. And I don't want to hear anything about people squirting water or disagreements amongst neighbors. And yes, sir.
The judge still had an open question as to whether or not there's an order of protection that's in effect at the
Is there an
moment.
order of protection?
I'm interested in that answer.
I don't think it's germane to the competent substantial evidence that we can consider for this.
correct.
And so,
criminal.
I understand the curiosity, but I don't think it's germane. And certainly, there's a time constriction also, consideration
And I
also.
don't want to be contrary, but I'd be interested in that answer, just to understand the relationship. Whether or not it's going to make any difference, I don't know, but I'd like to know the answer.
If I might suggest for the guys, is the applicant, whether that exists or not, the applicant has, she's expressed a fear.
Fear.
And I think towards that point, whether it's justified or not, we can all take our own consideration for that. Sir, please. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is Paul Askew. I live at 10026 Bear Lake Road. I am the neighbor to the south and the neighbor that was just being discussed. If you guys want answers about the issue at hand, I'm happy
No,
to
sir.
answer them.
No, sir, none of that.
I am contesting this variance for an 8-foot fence within 30 feet of the lake, as it will significantly affect the enjoyment of my property, as well as the future owners of the property. In addition, it will negatively affect the value of my property. When we purchased the home, the panoramic lake views that we saw were one of the main selling features. And an 8-foot tall fence will significantly reduce our view and thereby diminish the wow factor we experienced when we first saw our home. I have photos that I believe y'all received in your emails that I can show you of our current view and what the view would be like if the 8-foot fence was approved. So that's with the 8-foot fence.
What is that perspective from?
My porch,
Okay,
and that's my current view. So that's the reason we bought the house.
can we see the first one again, please?
And then the second?
Did you just take, how did you create that to know that it's 8 feet?
Scale. I'm a general contractor, so I measured my shrubs, scaled the shrubs, added the Photoshop.
Gotcha.
And how high are those shrubs?
They're approximately 4 to 4.5 feet.
And the walls he's talking about would be along those shrubs?
The 8-foot fence would run from approximately, well, she just mentioned the rock, so it'd even be further down. But it would, my understanding is it'd be 8 foot from the mean high water level.
This
So-
microphone right here works if you want to point right here.
Okay. So my understanding is the 8 foot would be from the mean high water level. So I actually brought this line back 8 feet from the water's level. What Ms. Wheeler was referring to was actually extending that fence out further past the hedge line you see. So it actually obstruct my view even further.
Where's your property line and her, where's the definition?
My property line is on the opposite side, just along the other edge, her side of this row of hedge material.
I'm trying to look, see the difference in the two pictures. So all the green between the walkway and the bushes is her property? You see the porch rail coming down, and you see all that green. And
The
you see
lawn to the right is your grass or her grass?
This is my property.
Okay. And where's she gonna put the fence?
These are my shrubs.
She wants to build it up right there so you can see the
And then
comparison.
that-
You don't see the palm tree anymore on that side.
That would be the 8-foot tall fence. So my view goes from seeing out a panoramic view to I lose, I don't know, 60 degrees of view out of a 180-degree view.
And the area that would allow the 8-foot is farther in this direction from that picture?
The survey?
Well, it was mentioned that there's 4 feet and 8 feet.
4 feet and 6.5 feet is what code.
I understand that they could allow, without a variance, 4 feet.
Yes, sir, up to 30 feet of the normal high water level. They
Okay.
can have 4 feet.
And that wouldn't block you.
No, sir, I can't contest that, that's code.
And where's her house in that picture?
Her house is right here. My house, the porch I took the pictures from, line up about with her pavilion, which is right about in this area. Sorry.
Thank you.
So my house is approximately in this vicinity. And that's my back porch. That's where the pictures were taken from. And then my house, obviously, you saw the pictures of it, extends. Our dining room, kitchen area is right here, so we've got panoramic views looking out these directions, as well as multiple windows in these areas. So our view would be drastically impacted with an 8-foot tall fence that far down.
Gotcha, thank you, sir. Anything else?
Yes, sir. I've gone through something like this before, actually, a colleague of mine, and in reference to land development code and restrictions on fence, hedge, wall heights close to the water, it's my understanding that they're put in place to protect views across property lines. In addition to protecting the overall kind of beauty of the lake. If everybody was allowed to install a tall fence to your water's edge, imagine what that would look like around all of these bodies of waters and lakes. You'd have dissecting property lines with 6-foot fences running into the water. It just kind of defeats the purpose of the beauty of the lake. Approving the 8-foot tall fence obviously would establish a precedence that would be allowed. I don't think that's something that code has been spoken against. The other Reason that I think that this variance request should be denied is the request has not met the Seminole County's criteria for the approval of a variance. So, be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience to speak in opposition to this matter? Then we will close the floor. Gentlemen, your pleasure.
I move that when they discussed the allowance of 4 feet and 8 feet, that we grant that variance for the 2 different sections. Did I say that right?
Just for clarification,
Yeah.
if I may, so are you moved to, and tell me if I'm correct, you're moving to approve the variance for the height to be 8 feet,
In one section?
but in the section that's not within 30 feet of the mean high water line?
Yes, and then 4 feet for the other.
Right, that's by code.
Is this the same?
So,
Okay.
So you're saying
Okay.
you're moving to approve the 8-feet fence, except that within 30 feet of the high water line, 4 feet?
Right.
Is there a second?
Second.
Let's have a discussion about that. What are your thoughts on that, Judge?
Pardon me?
What, tell me why.
For the reasons when they explained earlier, that that's sort of the maximum that meets the code. It does give her some, I don't want to get into
Yeah.
the personalities and whatever and so forth, but I'm not certain that 8 feet or 4 feet is going to make any great deal of difference. It may be something that she has to work through in terms of her fear, but that's the maximum allowed, and I think that's sufficient, so that 1, she gets her fence, 2, he gets his view.
Anybody else's thoughts?
I
Mr.
have
Evans?
a quick question for staff, and I don't know if you know yet. Might I bring it back to them?
Please.
So I'm looking at the aerials for like fence lines that go all the way down to the water that are being requested. Do we know how many of the neighboring properties have this sort of variance?
Our code just changed April 1st, and this portion of the code was not in the code for fences. So they could, prior to interpretation of our last planning manager, they could go all the way to the water. They didn't have a setback. They did for height, but they didn't have a setback to the normal high water line. So as of April 1st, this is actually was put in place into our code.
So then to that point, we had the height requirement though,
Yes.
right? So do we have any variances that go 6 to 8
No.
feet in the area? Yeah, I don't see any on the maps. I think, to my concern, it's not maintaining the integrity if we grant an 8 foot to the water line. That's really my concern with this. Simply because like nobody else has that, from what I can tell on the aerials, and I'm happy to be wrong. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, my thinking on it is kind of 3 notes I wrote down real quick is, I don't believe in slippery slopes, and so I don't give a lot of consideration to those kinds of thoughts. As you guys know, nothing we do here is of precedential value, so I don't really worry about that. But philosophically, I'm a big believer in investment-backed expectations to property rights, in the sense that we have a neighbor, and I understand there's some bad blood here, but when someone has bought property pursuant to the rules, and someone wants a change to the rules, if the next-door neighbor says, no, I kind of like us to keep following the rules, I have a lot of respect for that. And I'm not sure if I'm hearing enough competent, substantial evidence to overcome that. That's me. Everybody has their own concerns.
I mean, when I took class and I first joined this board years and years and years ago, it was something as well, Mr. Chair, that I kind of agree to that point, but it's taking away, as Bernard always did a great job, previous chair to you, of course, was not getting sidetracked by the other stuff that's happening of neighbor versus neighbor. It's not about that. That's not our job. Our job is, here's what it is, facts, and that's it. All the other stuff is a shame, but it's not our job.
Yeah. I agree entirely. Any other comments? All right, so the motion before us is the judges suggesting 8 feet within 30 feet of the high water line, no, 8 feet, approving 8 feet except for within 30 feet of the high water line, then 4 feet. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. That is 4-2, it passes. Are there any, does that, I apologize to the board and to staff and to the applicant. We've got a few things jumping here. Does that address the totality, or is there anything else we need to address?
That's the totality.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. Thank you, ma'am. That is decision of the board. If you wish to appeal it to the county commission, because it's different from what you applied for, you do have that right, and after the meeting, staff can help you with that. Number 4.
Item number 4 is a request for a rear yard setback from 30 feet to 20 and a half feet for a screen room addition in the R1 Single Family Dwelling District in the Forest Brook subdivision located at 553 Green Meadow Court. The screen room addition will be 560 square feet and will encroach 9.5 feet into the required rear yard setback. There have not been any prior variances for the subject property, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, is the applicant here? Yes, ma'am. Okay. If you'd please, just for the record, give us your name and address.
Melanie Woodson, 553 Green Meadow Court, Maitland,
Thank you, ma'am.
32751.
What do you have to share with us?
Well, I have a pie-shaped yard, so at one point where my patio is, it's been an existing patio, concrete before, and then we put brick pavers instead, and we wanted to get a screen room. So at one point, the patio's 26 feet, from the property line, and then because of the pie shape, one part of it's like 20.5 feet from the property line on the one side of the patio. So I don't think it really affects anyone because our yards are pretty separate, and they all have them, and I don't see theirs. And none of them cared that we were getting one. I do have a letter from one person that said they didn't care.
If you could pass it to the clerk, please, because we don't have that in our records.
And I also have a lot of pictures where you can see, if you want to look at them from, I have like 6 neighbors that go around because of the pie-shaped.
We'll look at any, if the board has questions, they can ask, but if there's
Okay.
something you want to share, we're happy to look at whatever you want to share with us. It's your time.
Okay. Here's the patio, looking from my back neighbors. I'll just show you a few pictures. And then we can look at these, if you want to see them. So that's the patio. And I had a contractor out to do all the work. I mean, he didn't do any because my permit got denied because I didn't know there was a setback, and apparently he didn't either.
That happens a lot.
So that's like from, that's my very back neighbor, right across from where the patio would be. So you see he has a pergola up against the fence, and, I mean, you can't really see any of I only see the tips of their roofs. That's looking back to my neighbor. If you're looking at my house from the front, that neighbor's on the left. That's their backyard, where that fence is way back there. And that's one of the neighbors in the back on the right side of where the patio would be.
It's a lovely yard.
Yes. Thank you. Well, thank him. He maintains it.
I'll come do mine.
You should see it now with the trees blooming.
I can imagine.
And that's my next door neighbor on the right. They don't even have, that's a air vent. I mean, they don't even have windows on that side or anything, so, I mean, and that's where the patio is.
Okay.
And that,
Seen that.
it'll just be attached to the bottom, of the overhang and come out.
Gotcha. Okay. Is that everything?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Gentlemen, any questions for the applicant?
Are you going to build on the existing slab?
Yes.
Because it looks to me, when you said it gets narrow to the back, it looks like it's narrow in the front and wider in the back.
Well, it's just where the end of the one part of the patio is, it's 20, I need a 10-foot approximately setback. But up on the right side of the patio, I'd only need like 4
But you're not
foot.
talking about exceeding the current
Yeah.
pad that already exists.
Yeah, the backyard is the wide part, yeah.
That wasn't the question.
No.
You're talking about, you're not planning to exceed putting
The patio? No,
beyond the, okay.
no.
And looking, for example, at that graphic that's on the screen right there, where do Mr. and Mrs. Woodson live?
That is our property. Our house.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the Daltons, I guess, then, the Daltons.
Oh, they live,
I'm sorry.
Where the red arrow is. The real dark red piece there. They live, their house is over on that side.
Kind of your backyard neighbor?
Yeah.
Perfect, gotcha, thank you, ma'am. Gentlemen, any questions? Any
So
other
they'd be
questions?
most affected.
Yeah. But I don't see their porch. I doubt they'd see mine.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else in the audience to speak in support? Anyone in the audience to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll close the floor. Gentlemen, your pleasure.
I have one question just for staff real quick.
Please.
Since the rear setback is 30 feet and the existing house is 26.7 roughly, is there any variance that needs for the primary structure as well at this point? Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve and a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, enjoy.
Sorry, my eye was late, apologize.
It's just well heard. Number 5.
Okay. Item number 5 is a request for a front yard setback variance from 50 feet to 30 feet for a single-family dwelling in the A1 Agriculture District. The lot is a legal lot of record and was created prior to Seminole County subdivision regulations being adopted. In the early 1960s, when the subject lot was created, the minimum lot size was 10,000 square feet. The proposed single-family residence will be approximately 1,700 square feet and will encroach 20 feet into the required front yard setback. There have not been any prior variances for this subject property, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for staff? Seeing none. Ms. Fisher?
Good evening. For the record, Kim Fisher, 1614 White Dove Drive, Winter Springs, 32708. Hello, thank you. Yes, we're looking for a variance on this one. It's actually future land use as a suburban estates, which is a 1 acre lot, and these obviously aren't 1 acre, and we have to do well and septic. So well's already existing, and we got to get the septic in the rear, so we need to push the house to the front. So that's why we're looking for this variance.
Any questions? Well, that was easy.
Way too easy. Please ask me something.
Have you chatted with your neighbors?
I have, but not about this variance.
Gotcha. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone in the audience to speak in support? Seeing none. Anyone in opposition? Gentlemen,
Move to approve.
there's been a motion to approve. We have a second?
Second.
Judge seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Number 6.
Item number 6 is a request for a rear yard setback variance from 20 feet to 8 feet for a screen room addition in the PD Plan Development District. in the Chelsea Place subdivision located at 824 Finch Court. The proposed screen room will be 480 square feet and will encroach 12 feet into the required rear yard setback. The Chelsea Place Homeowners Association approved the proposed screen room. Letters of support were received from the property owners located at 818 Finch Court and 830 Finch Court. One letter of opposition was received from the neighbors located at 827 Norman Court, and there have not been any prior variances for the subject property.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, is the applicant here? You give us your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Sure. Good evening, gentlemen. Brian Dorian, 2938 Stonewall Place, Sanford, Florida, 32773.
What can you tell us, sir?
It's a really weird shaped lot that forced the house to the back of the property. If you look, it sits really far back compared to the ones on either side. It's a 20-foot setback, and they have 20 and a half feet to the property line. And they just want to build a simple screen room like the neighbors. And I don't know anything about the letter of opposition. That's the first I'd heard, but the neighbors on either side have approved it. It has a 6-foot privacy fence in the back. The structure will only be 8 feet tall, and of course it'll be some distance from the fence, so it's not going to impact any neighbor. There are many screen rooms of this type in the community, and they're just asking for the same thing that others have been allowed to build. And it's a pretty standard size. It only goes out 12 feet, which is about the average. Very rarely are they ever built more than 12 feet, and rarely less than 12 feet, because it's impossible to put a table and chairs in there. So the size minimum that's requested is an average size. It is a fairly large lot, but the house sits so far back on the property because it's on a cul-de-sac, and it's kind of a weird angled lot. And the homeowner's just asking for the same thing that others have been allowed in this community. That's all.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir. Any questions for the applicant? Applicant's representative? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Anyone in the audience to speak in support? Anyone in the audience to speak in opposition? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Chair, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, enjoy. What's next?
Good evening. For the record, Hillary Petty, Planning and Development. Item number 7 is 3 variance requests for 313 Gary Boulevard, located in the Longwood Park subdivision. The request is for a west side yard setback variance from 7.5 feet to 2 feet, a west side yard setback variance from 7.5 feet to 2.5 feet, and a rear yard setback variance from 30 feet to 1.2 feet for 2 sheds in the R1 zoning district. The requests are to bring into compliance the construction of 2 accessory structures. The first structure is an 8.2-foot by 10-foot shed that encroaches 5.5 feet into the side yard setback. The second structure is approximately 28.4 feet by 21.9 feet, which is a shed garage that encroaches 5 feet into the side yard setback at the closest point and 28.8 feet into the rear yard setback. In 2004, building permit number 04-4914 was issued for a 10-foot by 12-foot shed, meeting the setbacks in this approximate area. That shed does not appear to exist at this time. The property abuts a nominal 12-foot strip of land privately owned in the rear, and the property to the west is owned by a Conservation Enterprise Trust LLC as it is the edge of a large wetland area. A code enforcement violation number 23-331 was issued for these structures, resulting in the necessity of this variance. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? We have our applicant here. Could you tell us your name and address for the record, sir?
Yeah, Jeffrey Phelan, 313 Gary Boulevard.
What do you want to share with us, sir?
These things have been here for like 10 years. I only bought the property 2 years ago. I was unaware that this was going to be an issue. So I just want to get it corrected.
Am I hearing you correctly that you bought the property with these sheds on it?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Any other questions? I might have interrupted you there. Anything else you want to share, sir?
No, that's really it. I mean, they're not in view of anybody. You can't see them from the street. It's not bothering anybody at all. I just want to get it done and permitted the right way.
Man, you bought a problem then. What fun.
Yeah.
So how did the code violation come in?
Because
They came in because I was doing a fence.
Ah, there
So
it
when I
is.
applied for the permit for the fence, then they came and gave me the
There it
violation.
is. Surprise. Yeah.
So for me doing it the right way.
I was going to say, for you doing it the right way.
Yeah, yeah.
Goodness. Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate that.
I'm trying.
No, it's admirable, man.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Anyone here to speak in support? Seeing none, anyone here to speak in opposition? All right, that's nobody. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Sir,
move to approve.
motion approved. Is there a second? We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Enjoy, sir.
All right, thank you.
Number 8.
Item number 8 is a variance request for 301 4th Street, located in the Wickham Second Addition to Geneva subdivision. The request is for an east side yard setback reduction from 10 feet to 3.5 feet for a swimming pool in the R1 zoning district. The request is to construct a 15-foot by 26-foot swimming pool 6.5 feet into the east side yard setback. The property is a corner lot and abuts a 12.5-foot alley on the affected side. The site plan drawn by the applicant includes a future 24-foot by 30-foot medical detached garage. The structure is not part of the request and will require variances in the future if the applicant planned to proceed with it. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, is the applicant here? As you've heard all night, sir, please give us your name and address for the record.
Clayton Campo, 301 4th Street, Geneva, Florida.
All right, sir, what do you have to share?
So we just purchased this property a couple months ago with intentions of putting a pool and a privacy fence. I've since put the privacy fence. It's been permitted and everything. And I didn't know that the property line when we bought the house was as close as it was. I thought it was the neighboring fence. But there's a vacant alley. I believe it's 16 feet wide. So that puts me 3.5 feet off the property line from the edge of the pool.
Gotcha. Anything else?
No, sir.
Gentlemen, any questions for the applicant?
When I first saw it, I thought it was a little close. Then I realized he had the extra space behind him that he can't use. Kind of removed some of the concern.
Yeah.
All right, thank you,
For
sir.
me, anyway.
Anyone here to speak in support? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, we'll close the floor. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Judge seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Enjoy your pool. Number 9, please.
Item number 9 is a variance request for 1830 Barton Street, located in the San Lando Springs subdivision. The request is for an east side yard setback reduction from 10 feet to 5 feet for a covered patio addition and screen enclosure in the R1AA zoning district. The request is to construct a 72-square-foot covered patio addition encroaching 5 feet into the side yard setback and a 1,036-square-foot pool screen enclosure attached to it encroaching 1 foot into the side yard setback. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Gentlemen, any questions for staff? All right, is our applicant here? You can come on, you've got to, you only come down if there's something you want to add. Okay.
Do you want me to bring you the mic, DC?
It'd be easier to come down and go back up.
Going for the injury sympathy card here.
I'm gonna have to stop that alligator wrestling, I'm sorry.
No matter how much you drink, it never gets easier. Yes, sir. If you have your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, DC Johnson, 1400 South Ronald Reagan Boulevard, Longwood, 32750. We designed this enclosure to follow with the existing line of the roof line of the house. All of the walls are screened. That's just one section of an insulated elite roof, what we call an elite roof, with this sandwiched aluminum with 3-inch insulation, just so they could have some extra shaded area back there. Since following the roof line put us 5 feet into that setback. the next door neighbor, as you can see, they've got a pretty tall fence, and the next door neighbor does have a letter of approval for that, which would be the only affected neighbor.
I don't mean to contradict you, sir. That's not in our file. Do you have a copy of that with you?
Of what?
Of that letter of support?
I'm sure I do. I'm uploaded it.
It didn't make our packet. Or if you just want to tell us which of the neighbors.
I don't see it in my paperwork here. It is the day that we signed this paperwork, the next door neighbor signed that letter of approval.
Gotcha.
And I could have sworn that I emailed it, but apparently they didn't receive it. I do have it in my emails, if there's any way I can forward it to someone.
Which neighbor is it?
This one right here.
The directly affected neighbor?
Yes, that's the only affected neighbor.
Anything else, sir?
That's it.
All right, any questions, sir? Gentlemen? All right, thank you, sir. Anyone here to speak in support? I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Is what you're trying to do just extend the overhang?
I'm sorry?
Is what you're trying to do just extend the overhang?
Well, we've got a pool enclosure coming off the back of the house. And on the side of the pool enclosure, I actually have a layout, if you'd want me to put it up here.
Well,
There's just one little section of insulated roof that is roughly like 6 foot
You
by...
want to extend that?
Yes, that's what's going into the 5-foot setback.
Okay, that's fine. Because the last thing you want is the sun in the chef's eyes.
I'm sorry?
The last thing you want is the sun in the chef's eyes.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
I thought that's all.
Anyone here in support? You're just going to be for everybody, young ma'am, down there? You would just come up and speak in opposition? Just for the heck of it, come on up and... All right, thank you. I'll close the floor. Is there a motion?
So moved to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Number
And don't
10.
invite me no hamburger. I want a steak when I come.
Sir, get well soon. Number 10, ma'am.
Item number 10 is a variance request for 2453 Sipes Avenue located in the Packard's First Edition and Midway subdivision. The request is for a south side yard setback reduction from 7.5 feet to 9 inches for a shed in the R1 zoning district. The request is to bring into compliance the construction of a 6-foot by 12-foot aluminum shed utilized for household storage, constructed 6 feet and 9 inches into the required side yard setback. A code enforcement violation, number 24-43, was issued for this structure, resulting in the necessity of this variance. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chair?
Sir?
Well, it was a question, but what prompted the violation?
I don't know, the code enforcement violation was issued. I'm not sure what prompted it.
Everyone on my street was violated.
Last month, we saw the neighbor directly on the north for their shed. So that could have been it.
Busy bodies.
I was going to say, sounds like there's somebody going around that neighborhood.
All right, ma'am, please share with us your name and address for the record.
My name's Shelby Seebeck, and I am the owner of 2453 Sipes Avenue in Sanford, Florida.
All right, what do you have to share with us?
So I'm a first-time home buyer, and this was a gift from my grandparents, and so I did not do my due diligence to figure out what was required prior to getting the shed 2 years ago. So now I'm just applying to get it into compliance so that I can keep my storage shed, because I don't have a garage.
Gotcha. Gentlemen, any questions?
Is the shed already there?
Yes, sir.
So that's the back of the shed.
Yes,
You
that's the
gotta
view.
go in the other way.
Yes, I only have access from the front side of the shed because of the lot being so small.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you, ma'am. Anybody here to speak in support? That's right. Anyone here to speak
Counselor, you
in?
got anything to say?
Yes. Anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, we'll close the floor. What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Enjoy your shed, ma'am. Last one.
Considering we're all alone in this room now,
That's
do you
true.
want me to proceed with 11?
Well,
I can do
nobody's
the thing.
wanting to show up remotely or anything like that?
We
You
don't,
wanna offer that option?
Chair will entertain a motion to continue this one.
I'll move to continue.
Is there a
Unless you
second?
want me to talk for no reason, and then you can decide later.
Just the mellifluous tones of your voice, absolutely. Yes, ma'am?
Nasa Borger, Deputy County Attorney, for the record. Can you amend your motion to a date certain, continue to a date
For
certain?
the next meeting.
The next meeting, which
Yes.
is, Kathy, do you have the date for that? No, we moved it to July 10th?
I can tell you.
No.
Is it the 24th?
That sounds right. July 22nd.
July 22nd.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Statutory requirement, not mine.
Hi. I would never argue with you.
Trying to think. Anyway, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it is continued. Last thing, real quick, gentlemen, entertain a motion on the minutes.
Mr. Chair, motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
By acclamation, it is passed. We are adjourned. Go Cats.